All
Hi,
right. Hi, how are you?
good. How are you?
I can't complain. Well, it's raining.
Mhm.
Grateful just for the calmness and just the
Yeah,
relief from the heat that we have been feeling over the last couple of weeks.
true. It is a
Yeah.
good balance, although I must say I prefer the heat.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know. I was suffering.
I don't know.
Oh man, it's so good to have you. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to NMP Talk Show. I am Dabacha Marapedi and I'm with Sinovio Mahuri. And today we are hosting a book club or a book review. It's going to be in the form of a book club because we're actually discussing a book. The author is not here, but just some of the things that we found in them, and we really hope that you can engage us about the types of books that you're reading, maybe also what type of material you'd like us to review on the show when the book review does come around, from around the normal show. I don't know, any introductions maybe you would like to make before we get into the meat of the show?
So I thought I just showed the book cover.
Yeah.
Okay. Um,
Yes.
it says "Future Proof Yourself:
Yes.
How to Win at Work and Life." I found it so practical for, after we've gone through COVID and all the ups and downs of it. I think a lot of us did get knocked in some way. And we realized how important it is to be resilient
Yeah.
and flexible in this ever-changing world. And
Mm.
I found this book to be quite refreshing in addressing that particular need that we all now have after
Yeah.
experiencing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. And um, what was for me, what was resonated in terms of the book itself was
Mm.
how we live in change and disruption all
Yes.
the time,
Constantly. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Especially in the times we're living in. It's like just when you go, whew,
no,
another thing
then it starts
comes.
again, right? Yeah, it starts again. So, and just that constant change, sort of sometimes makes us feel like we actually cannot cope, or we don't are not resilient enough to kind of like face those
Mm,
situations. But I really liked a lot of the exercises in the book, and I suppose me and you will get into the meat of some of the chapters because it's got a little bit over 20 chapters.
yeah.
um and each of those chapters, some it's got that little takeaway in terms of the sort of the summary of the entire chapter, and then in some chapters you've got like some workbooks or like some work that you can work through and sort of ask yourself
Mm,
those questions and see where you are and what are the things that you can do. And I really liked it because not only does it pose the challenge, but it also gives you what you can do when you face those particular challenges.
absolutely. I
Mm.
love that. It's very reflective. And I think the way Nikki Bush is the author, by the way,
Oh, yes, sorry, we
not to
forgot to
mention,
mention.
not to
Yes.
mention, yeah. But she, it starts off like so. I just felt like she drew me in because I'm not a self-help person. Hey, I'm not usually like into the self-help books, but she drew me in immediately by talking about her loss of her husband
Mm.
and how that affected her life. And immediately you just like feel such empathy for her. You want to know how did she get through it? And
Mm.
she uses that grief that she went through and how she overcame it throughout the book as an example
Mm.
of some of the ways that resilience helped her to get through those that disruption.
Yeah.
Um, she talks about dancing with disruption. Really, it's it's so relatable because we all feel grief, we've all felt loss, and she takes it and puts it in the home environment, in the work environment. How do we adjust? And it's well done. It's a well
Yeah.
written book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you can, our viewers and listeners, please do get your hands on the copy, but as mentioned, we'll discuss some of the things that we found in the book that we particularly liked. There could be some chapters that may potentially not relate to you, and so we're going to speak about what resonated with us from the book and what we actually found. So I can start first. So one of my favorite chapters is chapter 17, which is talking about, getting out of a funk or when we are feeling a little bit low. And I think that it's quite poignant in the fact that most of us right now, we kind of like feeling the year-end fatigue.
Yes.
We are feeling it. And just not being able to do sort of normal things that you would do when you're not necessarily feeling very low. And the stuff that she discusses in the book for me was I kind of like took away a few things from there, because I have been feeling the year-end fatigue, and I'm just like, only now feeling a little bit better. But I think that the steps that she was talking about are quite interesting. So one of the things that I appreciated a lot is that we don't wait too long to do something about this ebb that we might have, right? And I think that sometimes we kind of like push ourselves too much, and we're like, no, we can do it. It's almost like at that first instinct, when you feel it, stop and then do something about it. So that's what I appreciated. And then there is that reevaluation exercise that she actually has in that chapter about prioritizing activities, because sometimes the things that we do as people, it's a cost of time, and in some instances it's a cost of money, but not all of us actually do the actual accounting of how much an activity is actually costing us. I mean, it was like, I don't know, there's things that I do because I must do them, but I've never actually, right?
I know. I liked that. Like, how long does that really take you? And is it right to give that much time in your day to that thing?
Yeah.
That was interesting. Yeah.
No, that was right. And so, because most of us just go through life and we're like, yeah, but I've got to go do these things. And then you find out, actually, that could be the thing that's draining you and actually making you go there quicker in the exhaustion phase, right? And then another thing that I found quite refreshing here was that focus on your strength. And I think that was quite, for me, was that most of the time we almost supposed to think in these two quadrants, that you think of your strengths and your weaknesses. Yes, we must work on our weaknesses, but when you focus on your strengths, you're almost like, helping yourself and not feeling too bad. And I thought, well, I've never actually thought about that before. And the thing is, each one of us has a strength. And how do we then exploit those and really work on those to make them even better? I was thinking, when I read that, I was thinking, when you attend, like, for example, a job interview, or even in many settings, sometimes they do ask you, so what are your weaknesses? Right? And you very quickly go there, right? You're like, like, these are my weaknesses. And then, like, what are your strengths? And you're like,
Takes a minute.
So just really about working actively to think about your strengths, so that doesn't also take a long time when somebody kind of like asks you, in whatever setting that might be, that what are your strengths, and so you can answer that. Then I liked, there was a line in that chapter that says, motion shifts emotion. Yes. That was like,
she has a lot of cool lines like that, hey?
Yes, yeah.
Love that.
So, and what she was talking about in this instance was go out in nature, like, and I mean, we know how nature and just the environment really helps. So, and most of us, and I suppose in the city life, we might think it's too much hard work to go look for like a
Yeah.
park or a garden of some sort to really just pause for a
Yes.
moment, because when you are in nature, your emotions, yeah,
Mm.
go somewhere else. They don't dwell on just you being in this rut and just feeling like, oh, I'm too tired. And
It
I suppose,
really does.
yeah, right. And I suppose now with a lot of people maybe going away, hopefully that rejuvenation happens for most of us so that we can face the challenges that are
Yes,
coming, right?
we need
Yeah.
it.
Then the one thing that I found to be like a breath of fresh air from this chapter was that she said, go one day without a to-do list. Now, so I'm a very much to-do list person.
Yeah.
And that for me, it's like a bit of a scary thought, because I feel like, what if I forget that? I mean, I've got,
Yeah.
things in my diary sort of like, yes, this is what needs to be done. Hopefully
It can it can feel like, you're on the road without the GPS, like, what am I doing with my day? I don't have
yeah,
a to-do list. What am I doing with myself?
yeah,
What is
yeah,
my life about? Like, it can be quite scary going when you're used to doing a to-do list or having a
yeah,
schedule for the day.
yes,
Yeah, you can
yeah.
feel a bit lost, but it's a good point, so,
It is a
for the
good
balance.
point, and he's just like, no, just sometimes you just need to allow life to unfold, and potentially that might be a little bit of bring like surprises that you never
Mm.
even thought about. So I'm gonna try that, going
Yeah, I
a
was gonna
day.
ask, did you try it? How?
No, 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 I haven't tried.
No, not yet. Okay. Yeah, I have a lot of things. Don't worry. I have a lot of things that because I'll read it and I'll be like, I should. There's a lot on my list that I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
gonna try this.
yeah,
Got a great practical point in this book as well
yeah.
for
So
life.
I'm gonna try it,
Yeah,
and see how that goes. I think, yeah, it's a little trepidation,
yeah,
but
yeah. But you might surprise yourself and
I don't know. Yeah, so that was for me one of those chapters that stood out.
yeah,
Um, and just because, lately that's sort of what I've been feeling. And so some of the things that she was specifically talking about, except for the one about not, having a day where you don't have this to-do list, that's the only one that I haven't tried.
yes. No, I,
So
I have a feeling you might enjoy it.
yeah, so I'm
It'll
gonna try
different.
it and see what happens.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. For me, um, as a mom, the part about working from home with children, I was like, please tell me about this. Because listen, COVID was hectic. I'm sure we all remember the clips we'd see of like children running in
Yeah.
while parents are trying to have a very serious meeting at work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So hey, it was a tough time. Because this book it was written for that time, when people were going
Correct.
through COVID. I still think, the aftermath of COVID, a lot of people are still working from home with their
Mm.
kids and
Yeah.
around, so it's still quite relevant for us. And I was quite impressed with the Pomodoro technique that she talks
Yes.
about.
Yes. Yeah.
She says that, those little timers that you use for baking or cooking.
Mm-hmm.
She said you have to decide on what you're doing. So I'm just reading the steps here.
Yes.
So step one is you choose your task. Step two, you set your Pomodoro, your timer, for 25 minutes,
Mm.
and then you work on the task until it rings, right?
Correct.
And you put a mark on a piece of paper, take a short break, and then after every fourth Pomodoro session, you take a longer break.
Mm.
And what she mentioned, one of the things was giving your children a task to do. So um, she said, fill a box with lots of different activities for your child. And the rule of the house is while the Pomodoro is still ticking, we don't interrupt mom or dad while they're
Yes.
working.
Yeah.
And then in the time that you have a break, spend time with your kids, give them attention. And the
Mm,
more it might be a bit rocky at first, but the more they get used to that routine, um, when you give them time with yourself as a
mm,
parent, they know it's coming, so they're less likely to interrupt you. And I
correct.
thought that was
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
brilliant. But
Mm.
I mean, of course, with children, the practicality of things sometimes. I try
Yeah.
to think in my mind, like, how would that work for my kids? But like you're saying about you're gonna try out the no
Yeah.
list
It's
day.
mhm.
This is what I'm
It's
gonna
about
try. School
practice,
holidays
right? It's
are
about
coming.
practice. And what I liked about that
You
is
know?
that, yeah, she's, where she mentioned that, like, if you
Mm,
do it, they get used
yeah,
to it because it's almost like, oh, yeah, but I know that I will have this undivided attention. And I suppose most parents would have, for example, a quiet time. I
yes,
hear that's the
yeah.
game that usually parents love to play.
Oh, I don't know. I think with most kids it might work, but
Yeah.
my child is so much like me. She just loves to talk. Loves, it's difficult. But, I thought, because screen time is a very sticky subject.
Yes.
You have to give them time limits and be
Mm.
very strict with screen time so they don't get too used to it. And my kid could sit in front of my oldest. She can sit all day. If I
Sure.
don't interrupt her and say, no, 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 it's time to do something else now, she can
Mm.
really the whole day. So
Sure.
the younger one is more, she's like, she'll watch a bit and then she'll go do other things. She gets bored.
Okay.
But I love how she mentioned that you can actually use screen time as a tool when
Mm.
you've got to do, because they're just gonna sit there for. But then she was like, don't overdo it, parents.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but if you know that I need like 30 minutes to do this thing and I need to be intensely focused, you
Yeah.
can just put on my favorite show for 30 minutes and then tell them, okay, when the timer goes off, no more screen time and
Mm.
whatever. So I thought that was nice because often when you read about screen time as parents, I think the moms and dads will probably know what I'm saying. Is you feel a bit of guilt because it's like they're like, oh, don't let your kids watch for more than like 1 hour a day, and you're like, oh, well,
Yeah. Well, we had screen time when we were growing up, but we kind of like didn't
it
listen.
wasn't the
Yeah.
now they're streaming, right? So
Yeah.
screen time now is can be forever. When we
Mm.
were kids, much like Kiddio, and then Kiddio's over, then you get up and go play, right? So
Exactly, exactly. And because you had that pesky neighbor child that came knocking on your door, like, hey, you said today we are playing. So,
yeah, come
yeah,
and play. Yeah, so
exactly. So,
you had you
yeah,
had stuff to do. Now they can really just be glued. And you know what? I also love the balance that she speaks about with
yeah,
children. In chapter 8, she said they children of flesh and blood, not robots.
yeah.
Um, and they're also feeling, especially during COVID, I mean, they
Mm,
were also isolated and feeling anxious, and whatever we were feeling, children were also feeling it. I love how she helps parents to realize, like, don't get so stuck on the I have stuff to do, these
yeah,
pesky children. Like,
yeah, yeah.
try to incorporate. The
Mm,
biggest thing I caught was it's the reality. Your kids are here. You have to get
correct.
work done, but your kids are here and they're humans and
Yeah.
they're flesh and blood and they're going through some things too. So
Mm,
incorporate them and embrace the whole thing,
yeah.
as opposed to staying stuck. So I found that very helpful. And now that school holidays are coming up as well, I
Yes. A whole,
it's
how
gonna
many weeks is it? Oh,
be
whew.
yeah, it's a long time. And I will say, when your kids go to school, you get so used to that. Because I was
Sorry,
like a full time, like I was with my kids like
Mm,
24/7.
yes.
sorry,
So,
Sino.
sorry.
I think we
Hi.
need to refresh your screen because you're not recording anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
how can I do that?
Disconnect and reconnect again, please.
Okay.
All right.
Let me see. Leave.
Okay, so while Sino is trying to reconnect, um, Yeah, as mentioned before, it's got a lot of exercises and really practical things that you can do. And some of them you might actually find that you are doing, but you have not necessarily um, put a label to it in terms of how do you stay resilient even in the face of change. And also what is also very lovely about it is that even in these exercises, she shows how your children can also become resilient. Yeah, sorry, Sino, you're back.
Hey, hi, thank you.
Yes. So you
Okay,
were just doing that last bit about, yeah, with the
the
school
school.
holidays.
Yes, I was just
Mm.
saying, look, I school holidays, I am going to try the Pomodoro technique. Am I still there? I look frozen.
Yes, we can. We can
I'm
hear you. Yeah.
good, thank you. I'm gonna try the Pomodoro technique during school holidays and see how effective it is because it's gonna be quite some time with the kids at home and the work is not quite ending,
Yeah.
for us. So, um, but yeah, I also found there's part three. I think it's chapter 19, um,
Yeah.
in the book. I loved this. It talks about acceptance. Um,
Mm.
this is, I think, one of the lines there where it says there that when we descend all the way down to the bottom of a loss and dwell patiently with an open heart in darkness and pain, we can bring back up with us the sweetness of life and the exhilaration of inner growth. So, in other words, instead of fighting the difficulty so much, accepting it actually opens up some growth within us.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, and when she says, when you stop dwelling on it shouldn't be happening to me and accept that it is, you're opening up to growth and rebirth. And well, while you don't know what might lie beyond the mist, the
Mm.
burden of what you carry may be heavy. You can also believe that it is full of potential. Um, so it's funny because before I read this, I felt like, oh, there are some things I have to accept about my life as they are.
Mm. Mm.
And I wrote in my journal and said, okay, things to accept. And I just wrote a list of all these things to
Mm.
accept. And then I read this and I was like, what? um, it's,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a
And
power in it.
it's true, and it's very crippling, right, to sort of
Mhm.
say, but things were better, or why me?
Yes, it really makes you stay stuck.
Yeah.
And just low energy but
Correct.
once you sort of accept a situation, you're
Mm.
empowered to grow, as she says,
Mm.
and develop, put your energies in the right place as well, because
Yeah.
sometimes when we're fighting and not accepting things as they are, we expend so much energy
Yeah.
and waste it on this fight.
Mm.
um when in actual fact, if we could just accept the situation, we'd have more peace and contentment and
Correct.
we find better solutions because now our minds are
Correct.
free, you know?
Yeah. And
So I
sometimes it's
really
just
love,
a fact that you shouldn't be fighting in the first place, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no fighting needed.
Mm.
So I like that. I really found that very useful for just getting through life because a lot of the time there are a lot of things we have to accept that we're not
Mm.
happy. Life
Yeah.
happens. You can plan, you can like put all your ducks in a row, and
Hmm.
life happens.
Correct.
And when we stay in that phase, we don't move forward. So I love
Correct.
that. I
Yeah,
actually
no, that
wrote
was, yeah,
a
sorry.
favorite. Sorry, I'm saying I wrote a little. It's actually chapter 9. Sorry, not 19. I
Oh,
wrote a little
yes.
note saying my favorite parts of the book.
Oh, no, yeah,
Really
that's
resonated.
amazing. Oh, yeah, because of, and I suppose we only have like so much energy to use.
Mm,
Choose
really.
wisely. Choose
Choose
wisely.
wisely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Choose
And
wisely where
accept
you're going to use it.
the way in having that. Yeah.
Yeah, correct, correct. Now, I know me and you sort of have I don't want to call it a favorite chapter, but there's a specific chapter in the book that kind of like spoke to the both of us,
Both of us. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And it's so, well, sort of what hit me is that we label ourselves so much, and
Yes.
what we do sort of becomes our identity. But what she says is
Mm.
that define yourself by who you are and not by what you do. And I thought
Mm.
that was quite interesting, because if for the first time I'm meeting you, Sino, and I'm like, hi, Sino, how are you doing? I'm Teboho. What do you do? And I would
Mm.
probably by that time told you what I do,
Yes. Yes. It's one of
and
the
not
first.
ask, right? And I like the example that she gave of the investment banker
Mm.
in that chapter about, so what did she do? So she studied architecture, but she found herself in now working in a bank and doing bank products. But what
Mm.
she really liked was like sewing and whatnot, and sort of
Zion.
creating,
Yeah.
right? And I thought to myself, many of us are kind of like in a job because we need to provide for our families, and but
Mm.
we don't necessarily understand or know our own essence and what
Yeah.
gets us up in the morning. Yes, we get up in the morning to go to work because we've got to, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it made me think about myself personally to say, what is it that gets me up in the morning?
Yes.
And she says with
Absolutely.
this particular architect, she understood, so she knew her own essence and
Mm.
understood her own innate talent. And even though she's not necessarily in that entire creative space in her new role that she's now with a startup bank, she's saying, but I am doing the things that I'm passionate about. Yes, it's
Yes.
the
Something you love.
environment is this way, but
Mm.
it actually feeds the things that are of interest to me, who I
Yeah.
am deep down.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that, she was talking about competition, that we need to stop competing against others because we don't have the same rhythm and focus.
Exactly.
Right. And really, the improvement is improving your own personal best. And I thought to myself, well, I actually don't necessarily know what my personal best is. So there's a lot of work that I have to do in relation to this chapter.
I feel like that's all of us. That's so
Right.
relatable. Like, what is my personal best? I don't know.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we make so many um so many comparisons. You kind of like, well, I'm at this age, I know that person is at that age and this is what they've achieved, where am
Mm.
I? You're right. And
Yeah.
it's like, but
Yeah.
that's not really, because our essence and our talents are so
Mm.
different. And so what
It's
will
true.
make me smile and happy is not going to be the same that's going to make Sino smile
Mm.
and
I
be
love
happy. Yeah.
I love how she mentioned that competition with other people
Yeah.
actually holds you back from your
Yeah.
full potential. Because now whatever that person's ceiling is, you're only reaching up until their ceiling.
Mm,
But what if yours is like sky's the limits, you know?
mm,
And like you said, what is a sense of accomplishment to one person is a different thing to another person.
mm,
So
mm,
you may chase after this other person's achievements and
mm.
whatever and try to do the same or similar, but you don't feel the same sense of accomplishment and fulfillment that they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really
Correct.
a waste of energy once again to
Yeah.
compete
No.
with others. I always
The,
like to say compare yourself to yourself.
yes.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
she actually put it like you must run your own race. So,
Yes. Yeah.
like, just focus on your race. Don't
Yeah.
stress about what happens in the next lane. That's not important.
And you know what was most interesting to me about this chapter?
Mm.
As I read, you talking about the example of the architect. As I read the chapter, I was like, wait, I heard Nikki Bush speaking on the radio before. I got my hands on this book. And she made this exact example
Yeah.
and talked about this not defining yourself with what you do. And it completely changed my whole perspective of myself and what my career should be, because I started thinking, wait, okay, what do I love to do? I love to create. I
Mm.
love to, nurture people or touch people's lives and so on. And as a writer, you can do that, but that doesn't mean that is the only lane I can stay in. I can
Yeah.
transition to another type of work and still add the creativity and still be touching people's lives and still, so it really opened up my mind and made me think like, wait a minute, I can apply myself in other places, because sometimes you can get so stuck, especially with what we saw in COVID.
Yeah.
Like a lot of businesses were like shut down and not operating,
Mhm.
and now you have to think on your feet and be like, oh, I still need to feed myself and my family, and
Mhm.
so what else can I do?
Yeah.
And I love that she brings that out to say, find something you love that you're good at, that the
Yeah.
world needs, and that the world is prepared to pay for. Take all of
Exactly.
those things and put them together. And then you actually can cast a really wide net
Yeah.
of things you can do once you know your essence.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean, one of the lines that, in terms of what you've now just sort of were speaking about, is that we have to dig deeper than just our job
that's what I
description. So
do.
yes, right.
Yeah.
So during COVID, for example, if you were like, you are a personal assistant, for example, that's
Mm.
your job description. It's not a problem. And I mean, you probably would not be doing the things that you suppose, because meetings were now maybe happening online. You don't necessarily have to go out, look for a venue. So there are a lot of things that potentially from your job description are sort of taken out in any event. And
Mm.
and what really helps when we dig deeper than just our job description or what we do, is that we start to realize, and it goes back to the chapter that I was talking about what are your strengths, because she mentions that all of us, it doesn't matter who we are, we all have
Yes.
that X factor that differentiates us from other people.
From the
And
next.
I mean, right, and most of us walk around life thinking, well, I don't have anything special to offer to anyone. There's nothing unique about me.
Mm.
I'm just here. And so digging deeper and just looking beyond the obvious, that okay,
The
this is
qualification or
correct.
the 9 to 5. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So
Yeah.
I really found that was quite interesting. Now, we
Yeah.
don't necessarily want to cannibalize the entire book.
Yeah.
We hope
There's
that
a
people
lot
will,
to get
yeah,
through.
there is a lot to get through.
But it's all
But
very interesting.
yes,
Yeah.
it is. It is. And I really hope that, through our discussion, you can go out, get it, read it for yourself,
Mm.
and see if, yeah, it would be something that, some of the things that are in the book could be something that you may use. Now, I know that one of the things that we wanted to discuss is if there's any audiences, maybe potentially, who might want to tell us what are they reading, what are they interested
Yeah.
in, what are the things we want to discuss, um, or want us to talk about, which books they want us to talk about. If they can, yeah, let us know at this moment, or we can then go into the second part of the show where we're going to discuss some of the books that we're going to be looking at or reading
Yeah.
during this downtime that we're going to have from this week onwards.
Hey, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Hmm.
So, um, I have some books here. I have like 3 books
Okay.
that I thought would be interesting. But our audience, please do let us know what you would like to see. We are very curious.
Yeah.
Um, so one of them, I don't know if you can see.
No, you still
No,
frozen.
it's
Yeah,
on-
in the last frame. Yeah.
okay.
So potentially you might just need to go out and come back again.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, should I do it now?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's try this. Oh, technology.
I know. I know. Yeah, you're back.
Am I back? My
Yes,
face
yes,
moving.
yes, we
Okay.
can see your face is moving.
Yay! I'm gonna
Yes.
do this quickly. So Coconut by
Hmm.
Gopano Madla. This is one
Yes.
of the copies I had. It's I love that. I mean, I relate to this. I was called Coconut a lot in school. So I saw it and immediately thought, oh, I should read this. So it's talking a lot about that identity, almost an identity crisis that we have as kids that
Mm,
came out, the born free kids.
mm,
And now you're adjusting to the Model C schools and all of that, speaking a lot of English and sort of losing the blackness or the traditional, stuff along the way, but still wanting to connect with it. I think that's what it talks about through two characters.
okay.
Um, Ngo Ofilwe and her brother are the Model C kids, and Fix is a township girl, and they
Mm.
want each other's. It's like Fix wants to have the more glam life, and
Oy.
you know, Ophelia and her brother are kind of struggling to connect, stay with their roots. You know,
Sure.
so I thought it was very interesting. And then Onion Tears. I don't know if I'm saying this author's name correctly, but
Okay.
I think it's
Calm.
um,
Yes.
yes. So this is it's a bit of a tearjerker.
Oh.
Um, and yeah, if you're somebody that loves emotive writing like I do, it follows an Indian girl who also identity. Her mom is like proper from India and
Hmm.
really stuck to those traditions and roots and not very, very reluctant to kind of take on the modern vibes.
Mm-mm.
And her daughter is trying to reconcile those identities whilst also dealing with some tragedies.
Sure.
Sumaya, that's her name. So beautiful, beautiful, and incorporates, the Indian culture of cooking and
Mm.
making acha from scratch and those kind of things, which I thought was,
Mm.
I love. You can almost smell and taste
Mm.
as you're
Yeah.
reading the book.
Correct.
Um, and then I'm gonna throw us all the way back.
Okay.
This might be a bit like boring to people, but
Oh yes,
hi,
no, of course,
Jane Austen.
of course.
I mean, are you an
I
Austenite?
know, like really.
So
Do you even
so
have
you see, I
to?
even have a special copy. I
Oh
have a
my
special
goodness.
pretty copy.
Oh,
But
oh,
so I would love to unpack this.
oh.
Pride and Prejudice. If there are any
Yeah.
J Knights in the audience.
Yeah, well, we'll probably need like 3 shows to unpack Pride and Prejudice. But it's quite interesting that you're
Yeah,
talking about the classics. So, one of my
yeah.
favorite books when I was still in school that we did was
Ooh, Lord of the Flies. Classic.
yes,
A real
right.
classic, that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm actually going to read it again. I mean, look, it's a very
Mm,
terrifying book, and I think that
yeah.
some of the themes in there are a bit but sometimes the whole thing about survival. Yeah,
Yes.
so yeah, I'm gonna be reading this again.
Awesome.
The
I'm
good part of
excited for that.
yeah, the good part about it is that I don't have to write an essay, which is what we had to do at
Well, you
school.
see,
Yeah.
this is the fun part. You
Yes,
can just
right.
like interpret
Exactly.
it your way.
Exactly. Just read it because it's like, no, guys, we are doing literature now
Da-da-da-da.
and let's see how we are going to enter. So it's quite interesting that you also had a
Yeah,
classic on your side that you want to have a look at.
great minds.
Yeah. But possibly I might just also include Pride and Prejudice in it.
Yes.
Then you were talking a lot about screen time and how
Mm,
because a lot of children nowadays don't necessarily like to read, and I found
yeah,
that so I probably read every single John Grisham book there is, everything,
out there.
yeah, out there,
Yeah.
like even the newer stuff that he's got. So he's got
Mm,
sort of like a series. I think there's about 4 or 5 books right now for young kids, and really it's not, it's light reading, it's fun stuff, it's light reading.
okay.
The first one, it's a little bit of a tearjerker, But it uses very easy language that kids can follow. So maybe if you want looking for something that your kids might want to read, and it's not necessarily too hectic. I mean, this will probably take them like a whole week, and it's the Theodore Boone series. And yeah, so if you've got children, maybe this is something that you want to have a look at for them. So it's like a little boy, he's 13 and he wants to be like a lawyer, so he kind of like gives free advice at school, so it's so I thought
That's adorable.
it's very, very adorable. Then the third one that I've already actually started reading it. I know it's actually been on a bestseller list for a long time, and it's called What Happened to You. So I'm gonna restart it again.
I saw that.
Yeah,
I wanted to read that. Oh, it sounds so good.
Please
Sorry.
do.
Go
please
on.
do. No, please do. And really, it helps us to kind of like reframe things, because we come across a lot of people, and sometimes when a person does something, you kind of like, what's wrong with you? So it helps us to not ask that question, to ask what happened to you. I mean, one of the examples in the book that I read, kind of like, wow, when people sort of act out in a certain way, it could be that it's attached to a memory in their lives. And that memory was a very painful one. So when that happens at a later stage, their reaction is quite something. So I'm going to restart it again.
Yeah.
For December. And then
it looks like a good one.
Yeah, no, it is. And then this one was done by a local and she's 9 years old. So she is
look at that face.
Yes, she's so cute. Her name is Neo, and she's dedicating this book to her dad, who sadly passed away. So I've read it from start to finish, but I think I'm going to read it again. And hopefully one day we can also have her on the show to sort of discuss how, how she is feeling and how she's processing grief. Losing a father.
I'm going to bring my tissues.
Yeah, please. We're going to need tissues that day.
Wow.
Yes, we're going to need tissues that day. Yeah, so that's on my, I mean, there's probably a whole host of other books that are in my reading list for the next couple of weeks, but that's sort of the starter for me.
Okay. Yeah. I love your list. Listen, that What Happened to You for me, I saw it somewhere. I don't remember, like online somewhere, and I was like, I have to read this.
Please get your hands on it. Get your hands on it and read it. It's something else. Really, you have to. But I'm gonna get the ones that you have suggested and add them to my pile of books to read.
Awesome.
Yes.
It's never enough. Never
enough.
Of
course. We just wish we had big enough bookshelves to kind of like fit all the books that we want to actually.
Right, the ones that require a ladder. Yes. That's my dream bookshelf one day in life, maybe.
Yeah, well,
Well, acceptance.
Of course, it's acceptance. It's like it's going to be that small little one on the corner. It's fine because it still has some of your it still has exactly still some of your favorite books, and maybe something that takes you out of your comfort zone in terms of themes, plots, and all of that. And definitely Pride and Prejudice. I mean, like, do we need to even? Yeah,
does not need introduction.
No, not at all. Yes. I don't know if we have any audiences online that maybe want to have a chat to us. Mr. Producer.
Any book suggestions? I'm always curious to hear what people
know,
like
right?
reading.
Any book suggestions? I mean, we love to read. Any book suggestions. Okay. It doesn't look like we've got any suggestions or any comments. Okay, so Mr. Producer, what would you like us to do? Great, no
Okay.
problem. Right, we'll do that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Sino. This was like absolutely amazing. Really love talking
Yes.
about um Nikki Bush's book. I mean, she does have her own podcast that you can go to her website.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the things that we may not have necessarily touched on that may resonate with others, or that they have a look at the book. There's actually a very nice YouTube clip of an interview that she actually did on Morning Live when she released the book. So go out. There's a lot of resources around, or at least in terms of her explaining what her book is about, and yeah, what you can use it for. But yeah, we really
Yeah.
enjoyed sort of discussing the little snippets that we enjoyed and what we found interesting in the book.
Yeah, this has been lovely. I've enjoyed chatting with you about and seeing the things we both loved about the book, and our classics that we love that we'll hopefully get to discuss at a later time.
Yes.
So, audience, join us
Yes,
um,
please. Yes,
and tell
please.
us what you want to read, what you're interested in. What are you reading? What do you love about it?
Yeah.
We are very excited to hear about that.
Yeah, no, definitely. We really would love to do that. Well, that
Yeah.
is the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us and really
Yes.
giving us your time so that we can go through this wonderful book and some of the suggestions that you can read. And so, yeah, we look forward to, letting us know what you would like to read and what you would like us to focus on. So please watch the space. I think the next couple of episodes we may have actual authors that would have written books
Yes.
that we're going to discuss. So please be on the lookout for that.
Mm,
But
mm.
as for now, it is goodbye and good night.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
Bye.